Mason slammed the phone down, his hands shaking as the words echoed in his mind. "You're too gay to understand real problems, man. Just forget the money." It was Mike, his best friend of 10 years. The guy he'd trusted with everything, including his deepest secret. The betrayal hit like a freight train, leaving Mason staring at the empty apartment wall in Seattle, wondering how a simple loan had unraveled his entire life. From the start, their friendship had been unbreakable. They met in high school, two misfits in a sea of jocks and cheerleaders. Mason was the quiet artist, sketching dreams in notebooks while hiding his confusion about his sexuality. Mike was the charismatic athlete, always pulling Mason into adventures, from late-night drives along the Puget Sound to weekend hikes in the Cascades. They balanced each other, Mike's boldness pushing Mason out of his shell, and Mason's empathy grounding Mike during his family's endless dramas. Mike's home life was a mess. His dad had walked out when he was 12, leaving his mom to juggle 2 jobs as a nurse. She was the rock, but lately, her health had crumbled. Cancer, stage 3, the kind that sneaks up and doesn't let go. Mike confided in Mason one rainy evening over burgers at their favorite diner. "She's fighting, but the bills. They're drowning us," Mike said, his voice cracking. Mason didn't hesitate. He'd just landed a decent job as a graphic designer after college, and his savings were modest but growing. "How much do you need?" Mason asked, already calculating. It started small, $500 for meds, then $1,000 for a specialist consult. Mike promised to pay it back, swearing on their friendship. "You're like a brother, Mason. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't life or death." Mason wired the money without a second thought, feeling a warmth in helping someone he cared about. But deep down, there was more. Over the years, Mason had realized his feelings for Mike went beyond friendship. It was a crush he'd buried, knowing Mike was straight, dating girls left and right. Coming out to Mike last year had been terrifying, but Mike hugged him and said, "Doesn't change a thing, bro. You're still you." That acceptance meant everything in a world where Mason's conservative family back in Texas would disown him if they knew. As weeks turned to months, the requests escalated. Mike's mom needed experimental treatment not covered by insurance. Another $2,000. Mason dipped into his emergency fund, ignoring the red flags. Why wasn't Mike getting a second job? Why did he keep posting about bar nights on social media? But doubt felt like betrayal, so Mason pushed it aside. Their hangouts grew intense, charged with unspoken tension. One night, after a few beers, Mike leaned in close, his hand on Mason's shoulder. "I don't know what I'd do without you," he whispered. Mason's heart raced, misinterpreting the moment as something more. He pulled away, scared of ruining everything. Then came the big ask. Mike showed up at Mason's door, eyes red from crying. "The doctor's saying without this surgery, she's got months. It's $10,000, Mason. I swear. I'll pay you back every cent." Mason froze. That was his entire savings, meant for a down payment on a house, a fresh start away from the shadows of his past. But Mike's desperation was palpable. "She's all I have," Mike pleaded. Mason thought of his own mom, how she'd react if she knew about him. Disappointment, rejection. Helping Mike felt like redeeming his own hidden life. He transferred the money that night, sealing it with a hug that lingered too long. The next day, relief washed over Mike's face during their coffee meetup. "You saved her, man. You're a hero." Mason smiled, but inside, anxiety gnawed. What if Mike couldn't pay back? His job was stable, but Seattle's rent was brutal. Still, trust won out. They spent the afternoon walking through Pike Place Market, tossing fish with the vendors, laughing like old times. For a moment, the world felt right, but cracks were forming. Mike started dodging calls, claiming hospital visits. Mason's texts went unanswered for days. When they did meet, Mike seemed distant, talking more about a new girl he was seeing than his mom's progress. Mason's internal conflict deepened. Was he enabling Mike, or was this true friendship? His therapist warned about boundaries, but Mason dismissed it. Coming out had isolated him from family. Mike was his anchor, yet societal whispers haunted him, gaze as emotional, easily manipulated. He hated those stereotypes, but here he was, pouring his heart and wallet into a straight guy. One evening, alone in his studio, Mason sketched Mike's face, capturing the vulnerability he'd seen. It was cathartic, but also a reminder of his unrequited feelings. As the first repayment date approached, 3 months post-loan, Mike vanished. No calls, no texts. Mason's worry turned to panic. He drove to Mike's apartment, knocking frantically. No answer. Finally, a neighbor said Mike had moved out weeks ago. Heart pounding, Mason called Mike's mom directly, something he'd avoided out of respect. Her voice was frail but surprised. Surgery? Honey, I'm in remission. Chemo worked months ago. Mike said he was handling things. The line went dead in Mason's ear, the world spinning. Betrayal's seed planted, ready to erupt. Mason confronted Mike at a mutual friend's party that weekend. The air thick with bass from the speakers and the scent of spilled beer. Where's the money, Mike? Your mom's fine. She told me herself. Mike's face paled under the string lights in the backyard, but he recovered quickly, pulling Mason aside. It's complicated, okay? I needed it for other stuff. I'll pay you back. Just give me time. Complicated didn't cut it. Mason's mind raced back to the lies, the fabricated urgency. He'd sacrificed his financial security, skipped vacations, even turned down a promotion that required relocation, all to stay close and support Mike. Now the truth unraveled like a cheap sweater. Mike had used the money for gambling debts, a habit Mason vaguely knew about but never pressed. You lied about your mom? That's low, even for you. Mason whispered fiercely, his voice breaking. Mike shrugged, defensive. You don't get it. The pressure. Dad's debts piled up after he left. I panicked. The argument escalated in the shadows of the oak tree, voices rising above the party chatter. Friends glanced over, sensing the storm. Mason demanded a repayment plan, his tone firm for the first time. Mike's eyes narrowed. Why are you being such a bitch about this? It's just money. The word stung, laced with homophobia Mason hadn't expected from his confidant. He'd come out to Mike in confidence, sharing fears of rejection, and now it was weaponized. Is this because I'm gay? You think you can screw me over? Mason shot back. Mike laughed bitterly. Maybe. You're always so emotional. Like it's personal. Back home, Mason paced his living room, the city lights blurring through tear-streaked windows. The betrayal cut deeper than finances, it shattered trust. He'd built his life around authenticity, yet hid his sexuality from family. His parents, devout Christians in Dallas, called weekly, probing about girlfriends. When are you settling down, son? His dad would ask. Mason dodged, fearing disownment. Mike knew this vulnerability had promised solidarity. Now it felt like a trap. Days blurred into sleepless nights. Mason confided in his roommate, Jamie, another gay man who'd faced similar prejudices. He's using your empathy against you, Jamie said over coffee. Straight guys like that, they take advantage. Mason resisted the generalization, but doubt crept in. Was their friendship ever real or just convenient? He scrolled through old photos, them at Pride, Mike wearing a rainbow pin in support. Hypocrisy burned. Pressure mounted from all sides. At work, a project deadline loomed, but Mason's focus shattered. He snapped at colleagues, his designs lackluster. His boss pulled him aside. Everything okay? You seem off. Mason mumbled excuses, hiding the chaos. Meanwhile, Mike texted sporadically, alternating apologies and excuses. Mom's bills are still coming. Cut me slack. But Mason verified remission meant stability. The lies compounded. In a moment of weakness, Mason considered forgiving, rationalizing Mike's desperation. Family pressure could break anyone. Mike's dad had been abusive before leaving scars. But then came the public jab. Mike posted on social media, a meme about friends who loan money then act like victims. Subtle but tagged with hints at Mason. Comments poured in, some laughing, others questioning. Mason's mutual friends messaged, "What's going on?" Humiliation set in. Mason's internal turmoil peaked during a therapy session. "Why did I give so much?" he asked. The therapist probed. What were you hoping to gain? Love, acceptance, a piece of normalcy in a judgmental world. Being gay in America meant navigating minefields, work discrimination, family estrangement, societal biases. Mike's betrayal amplified it all. Mason decided on confrontation, emailing a formal demand for repayment, CCing a lawyer friend for wait. Mike responded explosively, calling late at night. You're lawyering up? Over this? You're too gay for this drama, always overreacting. The slur hit like a slap. Mason hung up, heart racing. Too gay. As if his orientation invalidated his rights. It echoed playground taunts, family whispers. Rage boiled. He blocked Mike, but the damage lingered. Friends divided. Some sided with Mike, calling Mason unforgiving. Others supported him, decrying the homophobia. Social ripples spread. At a community event for LGBT rights, Mason shared anonymously, finding solidarity. Betrayal from allies hurts most, a speaker said. It resonated. Yet, guilt nagged. Had he pushed too hard? Mike's life was tough. Maybe forgiveness was moral, but self-respect demanded accountability. As tensions simmered, Mason uncovered more. Mike had borrowed from others, weaving similar tales. The web of deceit expanded, pulling Mason into a moral quagmire. What price for justice? The courtroom loomed like a judgment day Mason never wanted. Small claims court in downtown Seattle, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Mike sat across the aisle, avoiding eye contact, his lawyer whispering strategies. Mason had sued for the 10,000 plus smaller loans, totaling 15 grand. It wasn't just money. It was principle. You betrayed me, Mason had texted before blocking him permanently. Now, face to face, the air crackled with unspoken accusations. The judge, a stern woman in her 50s, called order. Mason presented evidence. Bank transfers, texts promising repayment, the call to Mike's mom confirming no surgery. Mike's defense? It was a gift, Your Honor. He never specified terms. Lies stacked on lies. Mason's voice trembled as he recounted the manipulation. He used his mother's illness to guilt me, then called me too gay when I asked for it back. Gasps from the gallery, friends, a few reporters sniffing drama. Mike's face reddened. That's out of context, he blurted. The verdict came swift. Mike owed the full amount, plus interest. Victory tasted bitter. Outside, Mike cornered Mason in the hallway. Happy now? You ruined me. Mason stood tall. You ruined us. But the confrontation unearthed deeper wounds. Mike's eyes flashed regret, or was it manipulation? I didn't mean the gay thing. I was angry. Too late. Mason walked away, the weight of lost friendship heavier than any debt. Backlash hit hard. Mutual friends unfollowed Mason online, whispering he was petty. Can't you let it go? For old times? One messaged. Societal pressure to forgive amplified his isolation. As a gay man, he was expected to be compassionate, not confrontational. Stereotypes boxed him in. His family, oblivious, called that weak. Heard you're in some legal mess, his sister said, voice laced with concern. Panic surged. How much did they know? He downplayed, but paranoia grew. What if Mike outed him in revenge? Internal conflict raged. Was suing right or vengeful? Ethics clashed. Loyalty versus self-preservation. Mason volunteered at an LGBT center, hearing stories of similar betrayals, partners using secrets as weapons. It validated his stance, but doubt lingered. Mike's background excused nothing, yet empathy tugged. He dreamed of reconciliation, waking in sweats. Then the outing happened. Mike, cornered by debt collectors, vented on a podcast a friend hosted. Mason is obsessed because he's gay and had a crush. That's why he's suing jealousy. The clip went viral in their circle, reaching Mason's work email. Colleagues whispered. His boss called a meeting. Is this affecting performance? Professional repercussions loomed. Mason's carefully constructed life cracked. He confronted the moral dilemma head-on, meeting Jamie for advice. Fight back or let it die? Jamie urged exposure. Call out the homophobia. Mason posted his side anonymously on a forum, sparking debates. Supporters rallied. Critics called him dramatic. The divide mirrored society's fractures, acceptance versus hidden biases. Mike's family got involved. His mom called Mason apologetic. I didn't know. He's struggling with his own demons. Hints of Mike's repressed sexuality surfaced. Past flings. Confusion. Was the slur projection? Damage escalated. Mason lost a client, citing personal drama. Financial strain returned. Ironic after the win. He appealed to the community for support, joining a support group. Stories of familial rejection mirrored his fears. One member shared disownment. Mason shuddered, imagining his parents' reaction. Pressure built to come out, but timing felt wrong amid chaos. A turning point. Mike showed up at Mason's door, disheveled.
I'm sorry.
I need help. Rehab for gambling, he claimed. Mason's heart softened, but boundaries held. Pay me back first. Mike left defeated. The encounter forced reflection. What if forgiveness healed? But trust was ashes. Societal expectations weighed. Gays as forgivers, straights as flawed but redeemable. Mason rejected it, choosing self-worth. As conflicts mounted, Mason's awakening began. He realized enabling had cost his dignity. Decisions carried prices, suing gained money, lost friends. The story spread, drawing media. A local paper interviewed him anonymously, highlighting LGBT financial exploitation. Empowerment surged, but at what cost? Isolation deepened, pushing him toward radical choices. Mason's phone buzzed incessantly, notifications from the article exploding his inbox. Gay man sues best friend over betrayal loan, homophobia at core? The headline screamed across Seattle's queer news sites. He'd agreed to the interview for catharsis, but now regret flooded in. Strangers messaged support, others hurled hate. Drama queen, one read. Societal backlash amplified his inner turmoil. Was visibility worth the venom? Family calls intensified. His mom sensed tension. What's wrong, honey? You sound distant. Mason deflected, but cracks showed. Coming out loomed like a guillotine. Meanwhile, Mike spiraled. Friends reported his downward turn. Lost job, eviction threats. Guilt gnawed at Mason. Had his lawsuit pushed Mike over the edge? Moral ambiguity blurred lines. Justice versus compassion. A heated debate erupted at the LGBT Center. Forgive allies' mistakes? One argued. Mason countered. Not when they weaponize our identities. Discussions dissected choices. His loan as enabling, Mike's lies as survival. Perspectives clashed, mirroring Mason's mind. He questioned everything. Was love for Mike clouding judgment? Unrequited feelings twisted the narrative. Confrontation peaked at a coffee shop mediation, arranged by mutual friends. Mike arrived haggard, eyes pleading. I was scared, Mason. Coming from a broken home. I lashed out. Revelations poured. Mike admitted questioning his sexuality. The slur a deflection. Seeing you confident made me jealous. Mason's heart ached. Projection explained much. But damage lingered. You outed me. Risked my job, my family. Tears flowed. Friends mediated, urging compromise. Mike offered partial repayment, a job lead. Mason wavered, the price of holding grudges evident in his loneliness. Yet, betrayal scars ran deep. Mason walked out, unresolved. Back home, he drafted a coming-out letter to his parents, fingers trembling. I'm gay, and I've been hiding. Sending it felt like jumping off a cliff. Responses came swift. Dad's silence, Mom's tearful call. We love you, but this changes things. Conditional acceptance stung, echoing societal norms. Family pressure mounted, therapy suggestions, subtle disinvitations. Mason's world shrank, friends scarce amid the divide. Professional fallout hit. A promotion slipped away. Whispers of instability. He fought back, filing a complaint, but exhaustion set in. Internal conflict climaxed in a breakdown, sobbing on Jamie's couch. Was it worth it? Jamie hugged him, Standing up always is. Awakening flickered, strength in vulnerability. Mike's rock bottom came via a frantic call. "I'm in the hospital, overdose attempt." Mason rushed over, heart pounding. Seeing Mike frail in the bed shattered barriers. "Why?" Mason asked. Mike confessed. "Guilt ate me. I betrayed you because I couldn't face myself." Hours of raw talk followed. Mike's repressed feelings. Family homophobia mirroring Mason's. "I liked you too, but fear won." The admission hung heavy, a twisted what if. Mason forgave partially for his own peace. "But we're done as friends." The decision cost emotional closure, but preserved sanity. Ripples extended. Mason's story inspired others. A GoFundMe for his losses raised funds, community bonding. Yet, personal toll mounted, sleepless nights, therapy bills. Societal mending began. Mike entered rehab, outing his own struggles publicly. Apologies circulated, but trust's fracture remained. Mason reflected on trade-offs. Demanding accountability gained respect, lost innocence. High tension built toward resolution. Family reconciliation loomed. A visit planned. Mason braced for confrontation, ethics tested. Would he compromise identity for peace? Choices defined him, embracing authenticity over facades. Damage assessed. Financial recovery slow, emotional wounds healing. The price paid? A forged resilience, but at the cost of naivety. As climaxes converged, Mason stood at a crossroads, decisions echoing eternally. Mason stepped off the plane in Dallas. The Texas heat a stark contrast to Seattle's chill. His parents waited at baggage claim, faces etched with unease. The coming out letter had sparked weeks of strained calls, culminating in this visit. "We need to talk," his dad had said gruffly. Mason nodded, steeling himself for the ultimate confrontation. The drive home was silent, suburbs blurring past. At the dinner table, words finally flowed. "How long have you known?" Mom asked, eyes averted. "Years," Mason admitted. Dad's response cut deep. "It's a choice, son. The Bible says." Debate ignited science versus faith, love versus doctrine. Mason shared his story with Mike, the betrayal, the lawsuit. "It taught me to stand up." Mom softened, hugging him. "We don't understand, but you're our boy." Dad grumbled acceptance, a fragile truce. The price? Awkward holidays ahead, but authenticity won. Back in Seattle, loose ends tied. Mike repaid in installments, working a steady job post-rehab. They met once, neutral ground. "I'm bi," Mike confessed. "Scared me into lashing out." Mason nodded, closure bittersweet. No rekindled friendship, but understanding dawned. Societal shifts. Mason advocated at events, his tale sparking dialogues on hidden biases. Friends returned, alliances reformed. Reflection deepened. The ordeal exposed Mao Thuan Dao Duk. Forgiveness versus justice, empathy versus boundaries. Mason's choices sparked debates. Was suing excessive? Did Mike deserve redemption? He pondered the costs. Financial ruin averted, but emotional scars permanent. Awakening fully, he dated openly, joining apps, finding genuine connections. No more hiding. The story's arc closed with growth. Mason's designs flourished, incorporating pride themes. Community embraced him, a beacon for others. Yet, shadows lingered. What if he'd forgiven sooner? Trade-offs defined maturity. Family ties strengthened tentatively. Weekly calls turned honest. Mike faded into periphery, a lesson learned. In quiet moments, Mason sketched again, capturing resilience. The journey's toll. Lost trust, gained wisdom. Societal pressures eased as acceptance grew, but battles persisted. He volunteered more, aiding youth facing similar struggles. Empowerment's price? Vigilance eternal. As life normalized, echoes remained. Friends debated his path. Too harsh. Necessary. Mason smiled, knowing truth's complexity. The narrative's end posed a lingering query, inviting introspection on morality's gray areas. Was Mason right to sue his best friend? Or should betrayal be forgiven in the name of compassion?